Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday evening. We're so excited to have you guys here with us. This is going to be a really amazing event. I cannot wait. I'm very excited to be interviewing this gentleman and the illustrator, Yvonne. I get to interview Lou for a second time, which is really quite amazing. So I'm excited to be here. For those of you who don't know, my name's McKaylee. I work with Tattered Cover Bookstore, and we typically have people who are joining us from all over the country, often all over the world. And so if you aren't familiar with Tattered Cover, we're an independent bookstore located in Denver, Colorado. We have 4 stores across the Denver metro area. And if you are in that area, you are more than welcome to come in and visit us. As long as you wear your mask over your nose and your mouth, you can come in and visit any of our 4 locations for about 90 minutes or so. And we'd love to have you. And we've got great booksellers, can still recommend books, and everything that's the feel of an independent bookstore. However, if you'd like to stay in your pajamas and shop at home, our website's still open 24/7. And you guys can get as many books as your heart desires shipped right to your door. Or we do have curbside pickup available for those in the Denver metro area. So we love the fact that we are able to host amazing events like this, and it's due to you. It's you viewers, it's you people who continue to support and shop locally. We really cannot thank you guys enough. We wouldn't be here without it. And while Tattered Cover may not get to be a physical community space right now, we still get to be a virtual one, and that's thanks to you. And I just want to let anybody know who might need it or want it, closed captioning is enabled for this video. All you have to do is on the screen that you're watching me on right now, hover your mouse over it, and there's a line down at the bottom, a black line, and then there's a button that says CC. If you click on that button, closed captioning will be enabled, and you can utilize that if you so do desire. Now I want to move on and talk about the amazing duo that we have going on here. We have Lou Diamond Phillips and his wife, Yvonne Phillips. Lou Diamond Phillips is currently starring in the Fox series Prodigal Son, having recently starred on the acclaimed Netflix series Longmire, based on the Walt Longmire mystery novels by Craig Johnson. Other recent credits include Amazon's Goliath, FX's You're the Worst, CBS's Blue Buds, and the recurring roles on Fox's Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Netflix's The Ranch. I should be able to say that word. He received an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Actor in a Short-Form Drama or Comedy for his roles in both Amazon's Conversations in LA and History Channel's Crossroads of History. Recent film credits include Warner Brothers' The 33, Created Equal, directed by Bill Duke, and Sundance Festival favorite Lily Brown, for which he was named Best Actor at the Imagen Awards. As a director, Phillips recently helmed episodes of AMC's hit series Fear the Walking Dead, Longmire, and ABC's Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Phillips is also an author. His novel, The Tinderbox Soldier of Indira, which we are talking about today, illustrations with his wife, Yvonne, is published on Tuesday. It came out on Tuesday, October 20th. He's co-written screenplays for Trespasses and HBO's Dangerous Touch. He wrote the Miramax feature Ambition. He recently produced his play Burning Desire, a romantic comedy in 2 acts, which received its world premiere at the Seven Angels Theater in Waterbury, Connecticut. Phillips was also asked by his good friend Craig Johnson to write the foreword to his collection of short stories, Wait for Signs. Originally born in the Philippines, Phillips was raised in Texas and is a graduate of University of Texas at Arlington with a BFA in drama. And now he can add book novelist to his long list of achievements here. And it's my honor today to welcome both Lou and Yvonne, and we're going to have them turn on their camera here.
Yeah.
Hello, Phillips. How are you both? Phillips is.
Phillips says, yes, indeed. Yeah, double the pleasure.
Yes, we're so excited to have you here, Lou, for a second time. And Yvonne, welcome. We just cannot thank you guys enough. I'm so excited about this book, and just congratulations. It's in the world now. How was Pub Day yesterday? Was it exciting?
Yeah, it was really, really exciting.
I mean, just there were early reviews, and that was pretty fantastic. And then, a lot of the publicity hit, and then we started watching the numbers go up. I mean, we were hearing from Mathon, and we were hearing from Podium, and I think they were getting heavier traffic than they anticipated. And so, anybody who's ordered the hardcover, which has 30 of Yvonne's illustrations in it, we might have to ask for a little bit of patience, because I think they're backlogged now. I think they've received more orders than they thought, and that's the good news and the bad news. But I think they're working out the bugs. COVID obviously I think has had a an effect on their distribution center, but they're figuring it out. And what just this morning you saw?
I think it's back to normal. It was like a month's wait, and now I think it's like a week or something.
So hopefully we'll get those books into your hands very shortly once you order them.
Absolutely. And you guys can order them at tatteredcover.com as well. And we just continue to thank everybody for their patience with, how things are getting distributed. The world is out of whack for a lot of people, and the book industry is no exception here. But why don't you, for those who may not have heard about it, or those who still need some convincing for some reason to get a copy of this book, what is The Tinderbox about? Well, The Tinderbox Soldier of Indira about.
Yeah, and we added that Soldier of Indira. I mean, it was actually Athon's idea, Rhett Bruno, the editor over there, to differentiate it from The Tinderbox by Hans Christian Andersen. But that is indeed oh, that's our dog.
Oh no, poor puppy.
I'll take you out later. Okay, settle down.
That's okay. We get lots of special guest stars of dogs and cats alike, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, we have 5 cats, so yeah, if you see something furry going across the screen like that, you know what's going on.
Got it.
But the original inspiration was from the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale, and that was Yvonne's doing. She's the reason we're here. You want to tell them a little bit about that?
It was the 90s. I was really into comic books. I was really into the Japanese animation, the manga style comic books. And at the time I was in Vancouver, and they were harder to come by. So you'd have to go to your local bookstore and independent bookstores and look through their catalogs and order it. And then, 6 weeks later, you get some comic books. And so I figured I'd create my own content. And I grew up in Germany and was very familiar with fairy tales. My Oma would tell me a fairy tale practically every night. And so I kind of went to the resource that I knew, and it was fairy tales. So I was going to do a manga style comic book of Hans Christian Andersen's The Tinderbox, and that's how I started it.
And when we first met, so she was reading some of my writing, and I was looking at all of her amazing artwork. And if you don't mind me saying, honey, I mean, a lot of Yvonne's artwork has that sort of old world classic pen and ink crosshatch, almost woodcut German feel, and I fell in love with all those. And then when I saw these treatments for a graphic novel, done in the manga style, and the fact that it was based on Hans Christian Andersen's short story, I just went, my imagination started going crazy, and the images themselves were incredibly evocative. They got me going, and it just felt like this post-apocalyptic, feudal, almost samurai, kind of feel. And I said, this should be a movie, this should be a movie. And that's what we started off doing. And it was very simple. I mean, it's, if the plot follows very closely the plot of Hans Christian Andersen's story, which is an unnamed soldier coming back from an unnamed war, meets a witch who gets him to go to the bottom of a tree and get a tinderbox, which gives him power over 3 dogs. Very fairy tale-ish. Yeah. So
just a little bit.
But I extrapolated that into a galaxy far, far away, and a planet that used to be one that is now split in 2, and centuries later is at war. And our young soldier gets stuck on this planet and realizes that he is very likely the key to a prophecy. The Mad King who rules this planet, Mono, has a daughter who is locked away because she is also a key to the prophecy. And now what we have is a Romeo and Juliet story, which may or may not bring both planets to peace. So it's adventurous in that way. And we, Yvonne and I have so many other touchstones. I mean, whether it's Star Wars or whether it's the Hans Christian Andersen, there's a bit of the Odyssey in there. There's a bit of the Alchemist, and there's certainly a reluctant hero, a la Bilbo Baggins or Peter Parker or any of these other heroes who never set out to be heroes.
Yeah, no, it's very, very, very much that. And again, just that relatable sense, and Everson is your hero, and how again, it's just so wonderful to see these great adventure stories that continue to last, but then you put their own twist on them, their own spin on them, you know, having the tinderbox be the central idea of it. But what was so interesting about that particular story? You know, there's so many fairy tales out there. You know, you didn't do a very typical Cinderella retelling or Hansel and Gretel even. Like, you went for the tinderbox. What was it about that story, Yvonne, that sparked that interest?
That's exactly why, because
Okay.
everybody knows the Little Mermaid. Everybody knows, you know, Cinderella. Everybody, and again, because my Oma would tell me all these stories. There's so many fairy tales out there by Grimm or Hans Christian Andersen or others that aren't known because Disney didn't do them.
Right.
And so, and they're so much better than some of those other ones. So, I mean, even Grimm's fairy tales has an unabridged version, and it's like Rapunzel, the story of Rapunzel in the unabridged version, the witch finds out that the guy's been climbing up her hair because she's pregnant. And you're like, oh, well, how did that happen?
And doesn't the witch blind him or something too? Like,
well, and there's a lot of killing and death and violence.
Yeah.
And the whole point is, I mean, that's not in the Disney version.
right.
So, but the fairy tales that are out there, and originally they were told by travelers to, you know, get some money and to be able to stay at an inn and get their lodging, and that's what they didn't. They were never meant to be for children. And so this one, I think, is just one of them. I think Little Match Girl is a good one too, but that's really weepy and sad. And then there's The Robber Bridegroom by the Grimm's Brothers, and that's like really violent. And it just, at that point, it was like the tinderbox, and I had these illusions of grandeur that I was going to do many, many more. And of course, I not only didn't do that comic book, I did it a lot differently than I had originally intended.
And I mean, well, the thing is that this story for me. So when I went back and I reread, you know, the HCA, there was so much there. I mean, as far as, you know, the bare bones go, adventure and magic, and, you know, prophecies and kings and queens and princesses and whatnot. So I mean, it was really ripe for expansion, I think. I mean, the Anderson version is really straight ahead, and, you know, things happen without a whole lot of explanation. But if you're going to novelize something, then I think you kind of have to fill in the details and you know, make it perhaps a little bit more grounded in a reality that the reader can I don't know, give themselves over to, you know. So and I'm not a big fan of Deus Ex Machina, where something just happens here, you know. I mean, I kind of, you know, having done mysteries, having been an actor in those, having written screenplays, you know, I like it all to sort of track and to make sense, and you lay those breadcrumbs, not, you know, to refer to another fairy tale. But even when we said it or I said it, and this is my fault, I take all the blame, because we were going to do the movie first, it made much more sense to do it as a sci-fi film, because those were successful. And at the time, she was all for that.
I'd given up on the comics. I'm like, okay, here you go. You have it. It's yours. I'm done with it.
Yeah. So it's okay. We're going to make this movie. And you know, at the time, Game of Thrones had not happened. This is how long this process has been.
Wow.
Yeah. And so there was not a lot of
Fantasy.
Fantasy was not a big draw in Hollywood. People, and that doesn't work, you know. But Star Wars, Avatar, you know, spaceships, all of that stuff, you know, was something that Hollywood could still wrap its head around. So it made sense to create this as a sci-fi project, even though neither one of us really set out to write a sci-fi novel. We didn't set out to write a YA novel either. But there you have it. Our protagonists are, you know, in their late teens, so it just kind of follows. But what happened is that in telling the story, you know, it obviously became more of a fantasy world, a sci-fi world, because it's set in space. But we never wanted to lose the fairy tale aspect of it, the fable aspect of it, with kings and queens and witches and prophecies and whatnot. And so that was a constant battle. That was a battle with some people who thought, well, you know, pick a genre. And my entire career has been out of the box. You know, you cannot put me in one category or another, and certainly the writing is going to be, you know, in that same vein. And I have to say that what Yvonne has done with the illustrations kind of follows that, hybrid mentality as well, mainly because I forced her to. We're on camera right now, so maybe she won't hit me or yell at me, but I, yeah, I backed into the corner.
I love though that even though you were told to pick a genre, you still combined it with this beautiful fable story. And I mean, come on, Star Wars has queens. Star Wars has royalty of some levels. It's dumb of them to say something like that, but you do such a really great job, and the illustrations add so much to it that we as adults, when we grow older, we don't get the beauty of those illustrations in the same way, and people still have the audacity to say graphic novels aren't real books and those types of things. And I'm curious as to, what do you both think that the illustrations did for this book to heighten it, to elevate it to another level? We've talked about the illustrations being the basis, the inspiration, but how do you think, now that it's published and it's out in the world, how do you think the illustrations really add to the story in being a young adult novel where that's not typical?
Well, I'll start with saying that when I read a book and then watch a movie, let's take it there, and I'll kind of contradict myself, but I'll make my way back around.
I trust you.
when you read a book, or when I read a book, I like to picture things in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I want to imagine the characters to look like I imagine them. I want the world to look like, if you describe a room, this is how, through the words, I see it. And once again, when I went back to the book, yes, this is through my eyes, but I think Lou wrote what Lou wrote,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of still had a little grain of what I wanted it to be from the original.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to kind of pay tribute back to what it was, it could have gone really, techie and hardware, and I could have, space alien-y looking, but I just wanted to take it back into the fantasy world and remind people that this is a fairy tale of fantasy with that feeling. And you go back to Flash Gordon or Barbarella, and it's that vintage sci-fi. Let's just take it there a little bit and kind of put a little retro back to it. And so I think once again, people are going to read what they read, and hopefully their own imaginations will create the world for them, and they can take my illustrations and have that help them, or they can disregard them altogether, but that's an option.
And I think, we had a reviewer recently, say that the illustrations really helped her grasp the world, because some people, they think sci-fi and they like Yvonne said, will focus on the hardware or whatnot, but the way she dressed everybody, the interiors, the things that they held, it draws that very, I think, strong line back to that fairy tale, kingdoms of yore kind of setting. And we really wanted that. I mean, and what it ends up being is this almost kind of steampunk reality on these different planets. Yeah. I remember one of the critiques was, well, she's holding a candle at night, and it's like, well, Yoda cooks over an open flame, and there's the Death Star, in the same universe, so it can happen. There's a hovercraft, and yet, Luke Skywalker's out in the middle of the, desert in an adobe hut. So
fire is still like a basic need.
Yeah, pretty much. And so we wanted it to have that hybrid feel. We wanted to create, much like any post-apocalyptic world, you're looking at things that are different. On The Walking Dead, they're carrying, swords and spears around, katanas and whatnot, and crossbows. So there's this wonderful meld of technology, and we got to establish what that was. And as far as Yvonne's illustrations go, I think it's this fantastic hybrid of the kind of classic, German woodcut style, the pen and ink, with a real retro sci-fi approach, and some graphic novel
still a nod to the comic book
sensibilities.
Yes.
And so once again, the illustrations in and of themselves are a hybrid, and I think that's just so I don't know, it's so refreshing. Plus, we wanted it to be different. When we started this together, it's like, it's not going to be like anybody else. And part of that one of our touchstones was certainly Stardust, by Neil Gaiman with Charles Vess illustrations. And we thought, we can do that. We want to be in that world. We don't want to necessarily just be in the straight ahead novel world. We want this to, the Lewis Carroll books, have the wonderful
illustrations. Yeah.
All the Hans Christian Andersen has some amazing illustrations, and many different artists, have contributed to that. So we wanted to be in the tradition of those pieces of literature rather than something that was uniquely contemporary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you guys do a great job between the artistic storytelling and the written storytelling so well, and it blends beautifully. I'm curious, was your process as beautifully blended, or how was it working together? Do your artistic processes differ, or are they very similar? How did that go?
I was ready to not illustrate it because because once the movie or the screenplay and he wrote it in this world, this isn't something that I enjoy drawing. It doesn't interest me. I was not really wanting to do it. I wanted to do fantasy, and so I said, I don't have to illustrate this. I'm not, I don't have to do this. So you could straight up write the novel. And he refused. He said, no, no way. I'm not going to do this unless you draw it. And so, we kind of had the, I really don't want to, you should, it's your idea, it's in outer space, I don't want to do outer space. And so eventually I just went, okay, I'm just going to do one and see what the feeling is. And the first one I did was the tree, the picture of the tree. And
which I loved, and I went, yes, do that.
And so
I just swooned. I'm like, oh yes.
so it was like, if I do this kind of in this style, then and I don't have to do high tech looking buildings that are all Blade Runner and this and that, then okay, this I'm going to give you the style that I have, and we'll see how it goes. And so then I designed the witch, and I thought, are we good here? She's kind of, and it just kind of piece by piece went along, and I was going to do like a dozen, and all of a sudden I did 30.
I mean, the thing is, I never forgot, first of all, that she was the inspiration for this. We wouldn't be here today if she hadn't done these drawings in the 90s. And, having fallen in love with her and, become a couple and everything else, I mean, this was always.
I'm sorry, Yvonne, that was the best, most sassy move ever. I love it. Yes, confident lady. Go. I'm sorry, Lou. Please continue.
No, please. I thank goodness she decided not to go after acting, because I wash the dishes anyway and take out the garbage.
He does that.
But the whole point is that I knew I did not want to let go of the idea that this was a project that we could do together. It meant everything. I mean, yesterday arriving there together and have the book out in the world meant so much. But I knew I painted into her a corner. I feel bad about it, but it's the story that came out. And I told her, I said, you don't have to do sci-fi. You don't have to draw a spaceship. You don't have to, all of that. I said, please just draw what inspires you.
How can you draw it that with the burden? I'm like, I don't draw these things. I don't draw.
It's a fantastical creature.
But I don't. An ogre or a witch. I don't want to draw the burden. How do you go through this book and not draw a burden? How do you go through this book and not draw Rex or it's like, it's about them. I have to draw them. I don't want to. Big battle scene at the end. It's like, I don't want to do this.
But I have to say, and I think you'll agree. Well,
I had fun. Tobias is hard to draw because he's weird looking.
Yes,
I didn't want him to look like a cartoon, but every description of him, he looks like. How do you do that?
Well, you did it.
That's what it is.
He said he looks like Shrek. That's what he said. It's like.
But
Shrek had a lot of evolutions from the book adaptation to original computer animation to now what it is today. So I want to ask really quick, because of your characters of Everson and Allegra, you know, they are really great keystones to this story. And I'm curious what drew you to these characters. You know, obviously from the Tinderbox, you had to have a soldier, but what was it about these two? Did they come to life on their own? How did they come to you? And what made you stick with them?
Well, first of all, yeah, I mean, if we were going to stick with the plot of the original, you know, HCA, and you know, it veers a little bit, and there are some supporting characters, and it goes off in different directions.
Right.
But you know, I'm given, you know, boom, a soldier, and having been in a military family, Yvonne as well, you know, this resonated with us, and for me, that automatically means a young person, and that automatically is somebody who is going through a trial by fire, and is having the most drastic kind of coming of age you could ever experience.
Damn right.
And so that was very tangible to me. Having played King Arthur and having read The Once and Future King, you know, there's a lot of things that lend itself to this story. Like I said, you can even go all the way back to, you know, Odysseus, you know, Ulysses. He didn't want to have an adventure. He wanted to get home.
Yep.
You know, and so when you plug in this kind of reluctant hero who slowly starts to not only grow up and embrace his own character, but start to embrace his place in the world, you know, that's compelling. That's interesting. You know, I'm not interested. I wasn't interested in Sergeant Rock, dashing in and saving the day and beating everybody up.
Yeah.
That to me is not the stuff of literature. You know, whether it's, you know, Great Expectations or The Alchemist or any of these others that, you know.
I think he's more like Bilbo Baggins.
100%.
That when you said that earlier, you said it and it like clicked in my head. It was like, oh my gosh, that's like that is quintessentially who he is, and it's so perfect in my head. I didn't get it right away, but when you said it, it was spot on.
He read The Hobbit after he wrote The Tinderbox, and
one of my favorites.
Yeah, and me too. And so I'm like, you have to finally read The Hobbit.
Yeah,
I did. I loved it. And thank goodness because I might have stolen things from it.
Right. Instead, you were like, "Hey, great minds think alike."
and then, but you know, with Allegra, you've got this character who's locked away in an ivory tower.
Right.
It's a mainstay of fairy tales, but a lot of the fairy tales, I mean, you go back and they never psychoanalyze their characters. You don't know why the Wicked Witch is wicked, you know. Yep. And when and there've been so many. And speaking of wicked, I mean, you know, there you go. Once again, something that's extrapolated from an original piece of work that looks at things from a different point of view. And for me, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that whole the different perspectives.
Point of view.
Yes.
And so, you know, to make Allegra not a stereotypical cardboard character, you know, really had to get inside the head of somebody who has been so sheltered, but yet is so smart and so capable, and rebels against that as much as she can. So she is in many ways, you know, a contemporary female icon, you know, a girl power kind of character, constrained by the old-fashioned construct of fairy tales, and so that was fun to play with.
No, I liked her a lot, if you couldn't tell. So I want to, before we turn over questions to our audience here, I want to ask probably a question that's on everybody's minds. Is there something else in the works? Do we get to see more fairy tales, more stories? Can you tell us anything? Or are you just like, oh my gosh, this book came out yesterday, stop bothering us?
You want to handle this?
No.
All right. Thank goodness I married this woman. I mean, she is literally my ideal well. I have called her my muse. I've called her my touchstone. She's definitely my partner, and you know, my sounding board, even though she, you know, would like to beat me about the head and shoulders half the time. But positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is a wonderful thing. And we started getting some of the early reviews, and people were saying they love this world. They love these characters. They wouldn't mind going back here. and sci-fi in and of itself, has become serialized. So much of what's out there, whether it's Game of Thrones or Star Wars. I mean, they've created a whole bunch. James Cameron's working on the Avatar thing now. Alien, gave us a bunch of different sequels, and so it's always been on our mind. And we thought that we had a certain approach, and we're talking about fairy tales that dealt with the subject matter, but hadn't really found the spark just yet. And then, literally out of left field, Yvonne says, "What about this?" And she gave me an idea that I just went, "That's it. That's it." I mean, once again, she the key to turn the lock, and I'm almost 100 pages into the sequel already.
Congratulations!
Yeah, we're working on that, and I'm bouncing the ideas off her even more because I don't want to force her to draw something she didn't want to draw.
Exactly. So no, don't put it there because I don't know how to draw that.
It's so great to hear the two of you about your process and how open and loving you two are with this, and it really is a great inspiration. And and it turned into a wonderful work of art that I can't wait for everybody to read here. And so I do want to turn over questions to the audience because I could just keep asking you guys about it all day. Trying to avoid spoilers is so hard. But right. So I want to ask if you guys have any questions that are watching right now. There's a chat, which a lot of you have already been active in. That's right next to your screen here. You can just type in your questions about Yvonne's artistic process or Lou's artistic process, whatever you fancy. So a good one to start with about the artistic process, believe it or not, is Yvonne. Where do you start with your drawings? Is it sketches, freestyle? What does that look like when you're just getting to the blank page?
I do start with a sketch. Sometimes it'll just be, at the kitchen, on a napkin, on a table, I'm just kind of drawing around. But once I'm focused and ready to draw, I will do a pencil drawing and edit it with like a red pencil. And then I will try to do that cleaner, get rid of all the lines, erase it, and then I will ink it. I've recently discovered, this is new. I've recently discovered the photocopy machine. So now I will photocopy it, and if you do it with a red pen or a red pencil, those lines don't show up under the black and white. So you can do all the editing in red, and then they won't show up. And then
that's awesome.
Yeah. So.
I just want to interject too. I mean, this is handmade, man. This is old school stuff. This isn't computer generated. She's not doing it on an iPad. She's not,
Although I'm fascinated with digital art. There's some
our daughter
amazing digital
way
artists
into that.
out there.
Yeah.
My sister said it was like learning to draw all over again. She's a graphic designer, and for her, like she cartoons. She does all sorts of stuff. But when she got her iPad and stylus, she was like, it's like relearning how to draw.
God, they're so good.
Yeah.
But then I gotta say, I get to watch her draw, and I mean, it's just like magic. It's like alchemy coming out of the end of her hand. I don't know how the hell she does it. I mean, it's just fascinating to me, and then it just keeps getting better the more she does those things. I wanted to share a quick story because at the height of our headbutting back and forth, there was a wonderful David Bowie interview that we saw.
I adore David Bowie. And
really,
he thinks his face.
Yeah. And there was a quote that really sat with me. He said that if you are doing things that is in your comfort zone, you're not really growing and you're not really creating any more art. So you need to wade out into the water just a little bit more. And I'm paraphrasing here, but until your feet can't touch the bottom anymore, and that's where you're going to create your best work.
Yeah.
So go where it's a little scary. Do what you don't want to do because you may not have done it before, and see what happens.
Wise words. On the same line of advice, we have another question for the both of you. What advice would you give to anyone wanting to pursue an artistic venture with their partner?
Wow.
Yeah. Get rid of hammers in the house or anything that you can, like
knives.
Get rid of everything. I think honestly, if you're going to work with your partner, just make sure that you're friends first, and that it can withstand some headbutting and disagreements, and be able to take the criticism and utilize the criticism, as opposed to just letting your ego take over and shutting it down.
And that's the biggest thing, I mean, even in my process of becoming a novelist, and looking at the literary world as monastic and iconoclastic and all of that, and realizing, no, you're going to get notes from editors and agents and publishers and all these people, in addition to everything that we hashed out, so you have to be able to have an open mind and an open heart. And I mean, there's a reason it's called creative friction. I mean, you're rubbing up against each other to create something, hopefully that's better than it was before. And that was I think very instructive in that process, at least for me, is to go, maybe that's not how I saw it, or maybe that's not where I wanted to go with it, but to listen to the advice, or to listen to the, even if the difficulty with it was difficult to articulate, it was like, well, let's work through this, and I think that's part of the whole process anyways, is to have that patience, and to have that willingness, to let it take you where it's going to go.
And now we've hit relationship advice with Yvonne and Lou. Thank you both for that. I'm sure that, there's a lot of creative duos out here and a lot of creative partnerships. And I think even if it's not the partner that you're spending your life with, just learning how to collaborate with others is essential in being an artist of any kind. So thank you for that. So there's a question here that says, how long ago did this project start? And I know, Yvonne, you mentioned starting the drawings in 1990s. And then, so Lou, when did you get your hands on it? You said it was pre-Game of Thrones. What's kind of the timeline of, the first artwork to yesterday when it got published?
Well, she had done her drawings, the manga drawings, in the 90s, and thank God she held on to them.
Right.
I mean, because she's got this whole portfolio of beautiful work, And so I saw those when we first started dating, which would have been 2004?
Yeah.
Yeah. There are a lot of Easter eggs in this book. I mean, obviously the Shakespearean references to the HCA reference. There's a John Lennon, nod in there. Yeah.
Okay. I'm like trying to find. I'm like, I gotta go back and find Easter eggs on my art copy.
You looked around and noticed there wasn't a chair. 100% a lift from Norwegian wood, purposefully.
Okay.
Yeah. So just my little, but a couple of the other big ones are, King Raza the 47th, Everson's father. He's the 47th because I was 47 years old when I started writing the screenplay. I'm 58 now. Princess Allegra is Allegra because our first date was was Cafe Allegra in Vancouver.
Oh.
Yeah. This
is such a love project.
Yes, which is why I wouldn't let her quit.
Right.
It is.
So honestly, don't ever give up on these projects. Like you just got to keep going because you never know.
Right.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's the other advice for any writer whatsoever: is don't quit. I mean, the very first novel of mine that she wrote is something that I did back in college. And she really liked it, and now I'm probably going to go back and revisit that now that I'm published and I'm an author, because there's something fun about it, and it's illustratable. So
yes.
That could be the next project. Who knows? But the whole point is that if you've got these things tucked away in drawers, their time could come back around. I mean, there's screenplays of mine that'll never get made, but there are others that are like a little dusting off.
We've got a cat here. Okay.
All right, this is
okay. Who's the cat?
Boba.
Precious.
Yeah, he's pretty fabulous. He's half Maine Coon, which is why he's so big.
So cute. We can't have pets because of my partner's allergies, but I like seeing all the authors' pets.
Right? Yeah, Hemingway had cats.
I'm allergic to cats, or I've built a tolerance. But yeah, I know the pain.
It's hard. It's hard. So another question here. Lou, specifically for writing wise, when you're writing, does the main character write themselves as you go, or do you have a set path for him or her to take? Do things change as they write, or are you very set on your plan?
That's a very good question. I mean, fortunately, I think my screenplay writing has helped me a lot with plot,
Yeah.
and with character, pace, all of that stuff. I mean, so there is a structure. I know where it's going. I'm not always sure how we're going to get there, and so I will sometimes back up. What I have to do though is know that character inside and out before I start to write them. Otherwise, they start to sound too much like each other.
Yep.
You end up having them do things that are out of character, and that doesn't really track, doesn't feel grounded or motivated, and for that I really have to turn it to my acting and the fact that I
It's all good.
yeah, the fact that I played so many different characters from heroes to villains. I mean, terrible villains like Richard Ramirez,
Yes.
and yet have found a way to understand them and to adopt their worldview, to not judge them and not hold them at an arm's distance. And so every one of the characters that I write, especially if they're if they're not just incidental to the plot, if they're going to move things forward, have to be true to my vision of them. So I spend a lot of time marinating. I call it thinking about their responses, thinking about what their arcs are going to be and how it's going to affect the overall plot. So many times I used to write everything out on a legal pad, by hand, and
Yep.
then the transfer from the pad to the computer would be another step of editing. Now I've gotten a little more adept at it, and I can go straight to the computer after having jotted down thoughts, notes, paragraphs, lines of dialogue on the legal pad, and then fitting it into the whole as we go. But it's a lot of thought goes into it before I actually start clacking away on the keyboards.
Yeah. Neil Gaiman does the same thing, by the way, so you're in good company. He writes the whole thing out in his quills with his journals before he transfers it to the computer. He writes everything out by hand first. So
that's good company.
Yeah, right.
yep. See, you are in good company. So there's a question about the illustrations in the ebook edition. Do they come across as well? Do you feel like that the print's better? Do you have an opinion?
Well, I've seen our editor chose which ones to put in the ebook, and there's obviously lesser. I think there's 6
in the ebook and 30 in the hardcover. So
right.
I mean, once again, it's like a keepsake. It's something that you're having in your hand, and having that art right there in your hand too. I think there's something special about that.
And I think as with anything, you're going to lose a bit when you go that route with the ebook. So you can kind of get a glimpse of what they are, but yeah, obviously the quality is a lot better in the hardcover.
I got an e-arc of it, and I needed a copy. So I will just say, as I will vouch and answer this question as somebody who got to pre-read an e-version of it, the physical copy is worth it. It's pretty and beautiful, and you get to see everything. So that's what I would vouch for as a personal level. Also, you can purchase it at tatteredcover.com and support your local independent bookstore and get a print version.
I didn't know that. I will change my website to you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Independent booksellers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we're staying alive, right?
Doing everything we can to keep everybody alive. I mean, hopefully, thank God. We're restaurant owners too. I'm co-owner of the Tribeca Grill here in New York, so I'm pretty sure we're going to survive. But it's like, man, this hit everybody. Hit everybody.
That being said, though, there's a question that I love asking authors and artists of all kinds when we're on these is like, what media has gotten you through this pandemic that you want to recommend to other people? It can be a music record you've listened to, or a TV show you've just binge watched, or obviously books. What media has gotten you through so far that you want to share?
I think there's been a few. Yeah, we've binged many shows. We read every night. We spend an hour reading before we go to sleep. Our daughter just turned 13, so yeah, we watch movies as well and revisit some of the old classics that we're introducing her to.
Oh, yay!
Have a guilty pleasure of a TV show that we've binged, and it's kind of like I'm not embarrassed to say because I really love it, but it's called The Midwife.
Yeah.
Yes! Oh my gosh! It's so good. My friend Kate introduced me to it. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Good. It's so good. and it just, you just kind of can close off the world today and what's going on, and just these characters, and there's sad stories, and there's feel good stories, and there's tragedies, and there's hope,
and it's old fashioned. There's such humanity to it.
music.
Yeah.
And
It's about the humanity of it all, you know, and people living through a difficult time, but you know, I mean, the obvious metaphor is that, you know, there's always a birth there, there's always new life, there's a reason to have hope, and it was, man, it was so ridiculously touching to us this entire time, you know, and obviously the reading and the, you know, and watching the fun stuff, you know, that we've enjoyed, you know, whether it's Perry Mason or The Watchmen or a lot of the little series that are happening, almost done with Ratchet now.
Finished it.
Yeah, oh yeah, we did, didn't we?
Oh, you finished Ratchet. Okay. That one, I'm a little like spooky. Ugh. I don't know. I have to monitor my scariness.
Twisted a little bit, you know.
It was good.
I mean, it's like
Morning show.
is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, I mean, and we're, you know, once again, and I've said this before. I mean, I really think this is a chapter of Yvonne's life, so to speak, that is about to blossom, not only for her as an illustrator, but for her as a producer, because she is an amazing idea person. I'm stunned by what comes out of her head. No, seriously. I mean, and a couple of my screenplays.
No, I'm obsessed with her reactions because she's just like, I just do it.
Don't hate me because I'm so smart. But you know, we're working on a miniseries together with another author friend of ours. So
nice.
yeah. So you know, they're
Chris Bojalian.
Yeah, it's Chris.
Just another really kind individual. He's so nice.
Beautiful
and like
man.
we had to cancel an event with him because of COVID and stuff, but he sent us like all this swag. He was so great. Sorry.
Once again, somebody who just renews your faith in humanity. And so yeah, we're working with him on something. It hasn't been announced yet, but hopefully we'll get there. But yeah, I mean, and the writing sustained me because I did all the, you know, the final edits. Athon picked it up last fall, and so I actually literally started writing on set in between takes on that pad and transferring in the computer in my dressing room. But then when COVID hit, I could you know, dedicate, you know, most
dive into that
to actually do the editing and get through it. And it was massive. I mean, there were a lot of really nice changes, and changes to the good, I think.
Well, before we ask this last question, I want to just also say thank you to both of you, because like this has just been a really wonderful conversation, and your openness and honesty, and just about the creative process and your relationship, and about the story too. Just really thank you for this time. And I want to go into this last question here, which I can't remember if I asked Craig or not, but when we did his interview, but what did this book teach you? Either about yourself, about the creative process, or even just a fun little fact in your research. What did this book teach you?
Are you going to go with me?
Well, I was going to let you speak first.
I think what the process taught me, first of all, the story, I've always loved the story anyway, just because it's kind of weird and it doesn't really, it's just kind of bizarre. And there's dogs. Why are there dogs? And why is the Tinderbox is never explained? And so
no.
The process, what it's taught me is that I shouldn't close doors for myself, that I need to realize that at least try it. And so don't close the door before you have a chance to see if, you know, what's on the other side. That's my take from it.
Fantastic. And Lou?
For me, it was, you know, I mean, because all this is made up, I didn't have to do any research. You know, I talked to Craig. And Craig
Tinderbox, you had to know that one at least.
Well, yeah, I read the book. That's, you know, I read the Hans Christian Andersen. I mean, Craig had to go and you know, research the art that's at the center of his latest book, you know, and Bojalian
went to Thailand
for the Red Lotus,
and
you know,
went bicycling through Thailand.
So it's like, okay, I need to write a book like that, right. You know. But what this process taught me, and it's pretty much where I'm at in my life as far as career, as far as acting and directing and that sort of thing. But especially something like this where our names are going on it, and I'm not just saying, hey, this is for your entertainment. This is it's me saying this is something I believe in, and so therefore there had to have been hope and optimism and humanity to it, and we both, and it's hard to do sometimes these days, but the idea that the universe is just, that the good in the world will, foster and engender more good, that, building character and standing up for what's right, and doing what's right, is important. And so that's the story I wanted to tell. That's the story that I wanted to underline all the way through. And every day it was a constant reminder, what is noble about these characters? What is vile about them? What is, and for me, that's what great art does. And I'm not saying it's great art. I'm just saying that, this is our mission. Our mission, whether you're painting it or dancing it or singing it or writing it or acting it, creating it as a film, it is to touch humanity and to remind all of us why we're here and how we're all interconnected. So that, that for me was the journey.
Well, it's a story that you both told well, and the world is so blessed to have this awesome story in it. And I highly recommend it. It was something I was very excited for when I first met you at Craig Johnson's event, and now having read it and having it be in the world, I'm very excited to share it with others. And so once again, you guys can order from tatteredcover.com. Again, thank you guys for your patience and your continued support of independent bookstores, of independent restaurants. For some people out there right now, you haven't eaten dinner yet. Maybe order from your local mom and pop restaurant. You know what I mean? So continue to support your communities and shop locally. It's something that we need and that you need. And I think it just continues to connect others in a lot of different ways, like these stories do. And so I want to give each of you an opportunity to remind people who you are, where they can find you online before we close out for our evening.
Lou Diamond Phillips. I am only on Twitter. Anything else is a cubic zirconian. But you can find me on Twitter at Lou D. Phillips, Loud Phillips with a blue check.
Nice.
I'm on Twitter too, but it's really political. I'm at YM Phillips. But I am on Instagram, where I do post art daily, and that is at YV Phil on Instagram.
Phil meaning PHIL.
YV PHIL.
Yes. Thank you both for spelling that out. And my name's McKaylee. I'm with Tattered Cover Bookstore. Once again, you can order the Tinderbox, The Soldier of Indira at tatteredcover.com. Happy book birthday to you both from yesterday. So exciting. And if you two will just stay on while I cut the feed, that would be great. Thank you, everybody, again. Stay safe and happy reading. Bye, all. And we're out.
Yay!